Welcome students, Standard 4th, lesson number 35, The King of the Golden River, part 2. Dear students, in the part first, we have studied about the strange creature, Southwest Wind E-square. Now let's read part 2. Southwest Wind was true to his word. He did not return to Treasure Valley after that night, neither did any other wind, so there was no rain. Nothing grew in Treasure Valley anymore. The brothers made no more profits. The wicked brothers then began to make money by selling gold. They melted in a furnace the gold articles they had. They mixed a lot of copper in it and sold the mix as pure gold. Again, they made poor Gluck work in a furnace while they spent the money on themselves. So, due to no rain, nothing grew in Treasure Valley. So the wicked brothers, they had no money. They began to make money by selling gold. They made poor Gluck to work in a gold furnace. They melted gold and mixed a lot of copper in it, and they sold it as a pure gold. Soon all the gold in the house was spent. Only one thing was left, a beautiful golden mug that belonged to Gluck. Gluck's uncle had given it to him when he was a baby. Gluck used to drink both milk and water from it. A strange, bearded face was delicately carved on the mug. Gluck was very fond of the mug. He did not want to part with it. But his wicked brothers only laughed at him and threw the mug in the furnace. They asked Gluck to pour the gold when the mug was melted and went out on some wicked enterprise. Enterprise means activity, business. So, when all the gold in the house was spent, only one a beautiful golden mug was left, and that was belonged to Gluck. Gluck liked that mug very much. But the wicked brothers didn't listen to him, and they threw the mug in the furnace for melting, and they went away for their wicked enterprise. Sadly, Gluck sat down to watch over the mug being melted. But strangely, after some time, he began to hear a voice singing from the furnace. He lifted the lid of the crucible, and what did he see? The face of his old bearded friend on top of the melted gold. Crucible means a container in which something is heated to a high temperature. Come, Gluck, my boy, said the voice from the crucible. Pour me out, I am too hot. Gluck was too astonished, but he took hold of the crucible and tilted it to pour the gold. Instead of gold, a golden dwarf came out of the pot. Tilted means moved into a position where one side is higher than the other. He was the face carved on Gluck's mug. Pray, sir, said Gluck, rather hesitatingly, were you my mug? So a golden dwarf came out of the pot, and his face was the same face that carved on the Gluck's mug. Pray means please. Dwarf means an imaginary creature that looks like a small man. I am the king of what you call the Golden River, the golden dwarf told him. He added that another stronger king had turned him into a mug by magic. Gluck had freed him from that enchantment. Enchantment means effect of magic. The golden dwarf went on to say that he had seen how kind Gluck was and how wicked and cruel his brothers were. Then he told Gluck a secret. If anyone poured 3 drops of holy water into the river where it started on the mountain top, the river would turn to gold for that person. A person could try this only once, and if anyone put unholy water in the river, he would be turned into a black stone. So saying, the dwarf jumped back into the furnace and disappeared. So the golden mug was actually a king. Another stronger king had turned him into a mug by magic, and Gluck had freed that golden king from that enchantment. And after telling a secret to Gluck, the dwarf jumped back into the furnace and disappeared. When Gluck told this to his brothers, they did not believe him at first and beat him. But Gluck stuck to his story. So at last they believed him and began to fight over who should have the first chance to go to the Golden River. They fought so much that the police came to see what had happened. Hans ran away when the police came, but Schwarz was caught and put in prison. Hans was happy that Schwarz was in prison. The very next morning he went to the church, stole some holy water, and set off for the mountain. So, up to here, we learned that two elder brothers, Schwarz and Hans, fought with each other so much that the police came and put Schwarz in a prison. Hans was free. He stole some holy water from the church and set off for the mountain. It was not easy to climb the mountain. He was tired and thirsty. Soon Hans thought he would drink some of the holy water himself. Just as Hans raised the flask of water to his lips, he saw a little puppy on a rock. It looked as if it was dying of thirst. Hans only pushed the animal away with his foot, drank some water himself, and passed on. When Hans was climbing the mountain, he was very thirsty and tired, so he drank some holy water. While drinking the water, there was a small puppy, and it was dying because of the thirst. But Hans didn't give water to drink. He drank water himself and passed on. The climb now became more difficult. Hans felt thirsty again. He was going to drink some more of the water when he saw a little child on a rock ahead of him. The child was lying lifeless, its lips parched and burning. Parched means very dry. Ignoring the child, Hans drank some more water himself and passed on. So here again Hans ignored a child who was very thirsty. He drank some water himself and passed on. The climb had now become very difficult. Somehow Hans reached the top of the mountain from where the golden river sprang. A faint cry fell on his ears. Then he saw a weak old man stretched on a rock. "Water," the man said, "water, I am dying." "I have no water for you," replied Hans. He jumped over the old man's body and ran to the river. The sun was about to set. The river shone golden in the light of the setting sun. Hans threw the flask of holy water into the river. But alas, the river did not turn to gold. Instead, there was only a black stone where Hans stood. So Hans again ignored an weak old man who was dying for the water. And when Hans threw the flask of holy water into the river turned into a black stone where Hans stood. When Schwarz returned from prison, he took some of Gluck's money and bought some holy water from a bad priest and set out for the Golden River. While climbing the mountain, Schwartz too saw the fair child dying of thirst and passed on without giving him water. As he had climbed a little higher, he saw his own brother Hans stretched on a rock asking for water, but the wicked Schwartz only laughed aloud and went on without giving him any water. Alas, when he cast the flask into the stream, he too was turned to stone. So, when Swartz was climbing the mountain, he was also turned into a stone. While climbing the mountain, he ignored a fair child and his own brother Hans, who were very thirsty. Gluck waited and waited for his brothers, but they did not return. At last, he decided to visit the Golden River himself. He went to a golden priest who willingly gave him some holy water. Now, here the younger brother Gluck was waiting for his brothers, but they didn't come. So, he decided to visit the river. He took a holy water from a priest and went to climb the mountain. Gluck was young and small, and he too found the climb very difficult. After he had climbed for an hour or so, he became very thirsty. He was about to drink some water when, like his brothers, he saw an old man. The old man walked towards Gluck, leaning on a staff, and asked for some water. Staff means a long, thick stick. Gluck saw that the old man was pale, tired, and thirsty, so he gave him the bottle of water. The old man drank up nearly 2/3 of the water. Then he returned the bottle and wished Gluck well. Now Gluck also found an old man like his two brothers, but he didn't ignore him. Gluck gave his own water to thirsty old man. The old man drank nearly 2/3 of the water and returned the bottle to the Gluck, and he wished Gluck well. Gluck did not have any water himself, but as he went on, his path became easier. After climbing for a long time, when he became thirsty, he saw the small child. Gluck was sorry for him and gave him some water. The child began to smile, got up, and ran down the hill. Again, here Gluck found a small child who was very thirsty. So again Gluck gave him some water, and the child began to smile and ran down the hill. Now only a few drops of water were left in the bottle. When Gluck came close to the mountain top, he was very thirsty himself. Just then he saw the poor little pup that was dying of thirst. I must help it now, thought Gluck, otherwise it may be too late. So he poured the remaining drops into the little dog's mouth. So again Gluck found a little pup who was thirsty. So Gluck put the remaining drops of water into the little dog's mouth. So while climbing the mountain, Gluck saw an old man, a small child, and a poor little pup. And Gluck was very helpful to them. The dog sprang up, and in his place stood the king of the Golden River. He was very pleased with Gluck. The king put in Gluck's bottle some dewdrops from the petals of a lily. Then he told Gluck to cast it into the leaping river. Gluck did so, but the river did not turn to gold. However, it changed its course and began to flow through the treasure valley, making it rich and fertile once again. Gluck lived in the valley, helping the poor and the needy. His barns were always full of corn, and he never lacked for money. When Gluck put the remaining drops of water into the little dog's mouth, the king of the golden river took place of the dog. The king of the golden river was very pleased with Gluck. He put some dewdrops from the petals of a lily and he told Gluck to cast it into the river. But the river didn't turn to gold, and it began to flow through the treasure valley again. So finally, in the story, Gluck lived in that golden river valley again, and he helped the poor and needy people. And his barns were always full of corn, and he never lacked of money. So it is a simplified form of the story by John Ruskin, the King of the Golden River. Now let's learn meanings. Enterprise means activity, business. Crucible means a container in which something is heated to a high temperature. Tilted means moved into a position where one side is higher than the other. Pray means please. Dwarf means an imaginary creature that looks like a small man. Enchantment means effect of magic. Parched means very dry. Staff means a long thick stick. I hope all of you have understood the lesson. Thank you.